Top 7 things the internet promised us that never actually happened. It was going to fix everything. That was the feeling in the late 1990s and early 2000s when the internet arrived in living rooms and offices and schools across the world. Not just excitement, something closer to certainty. The barriers that had always separated people, distance, ignorance, inequality, the gatekeepers who controlled what you could know and who you could reach, all of it was going to come down. The internet was going to make us smarter, more informed, more connected, more equal, more free. Some of that happened. Some of it happened and then reversed. And some of it never came close. These are the 7 things the internet promised us that never actually happened. Number 7. The paperless office. By the year 2000, we were not going to need paper anymore. This was not a fringe prediction. It was the mainstream consensus among technology writers, business consultants, and futurists throughout the 1990s. The logic was sound. Email would replace memos. Digital files would replace folders. The printer would become obsolete. Offices would be clean, efficient, and free of the physical clutter of documents. What actually happened was the opposite. The introduction of personal computers and then the internet caused paper consumption to increase dramatically. According to the environmental organization Paperchase, global paper consumption increased by 400% in the 40 years following the introduction of the personal computer. The ability to print anything instantly and easily meant that people printed more than ever. Every email generated a paper trail. Every digital document was printed for review, for filing, for signatures, for meetings. The paperless office was not just a failed prediction. It became a running joke inside the very offices that had been promised it. The printer did not disappear. It became the most complained about piece of equipment in the modern workplace. And somewhere in an office right now, someone is waiting for a printer to stop jamming so they can print a document about going paperless. Number 6. The end of gatekeepers. The internet was going to democratize everything. Before the internet, the gatekeepers were everywhere. Publishers decided which books got written. Record labels decided which music got heard. Television networks decided what stories got told. Editors decided what counted as news. The system was not purely corrupt, but it was narrow. The people who controlled access controlled culture. The internet, the promise went, would change all of that. Anyone could publish. Anyone could distribute. Anyone could be heard. The gatekeepers would become irrelevant, and the best ideas, the most talented voices, would rise naturally to the top. What happened instead was more complicated. The old gatekeepers did lose power, but they were not replaced by a meritocracy. They were replaced by algorithms. And algorithms, it turned out, did not promote the best ideas. They promoted the most engaging ones, the most provocative, the most emotionally activating, the most shareable, regardless of whether they were true. A 2018 study by MIT found that false news spread 6 times faster on Twitter than true news. The study, published in Science, analyzed 126,000 stories shared by 3 million people over a decade and found that falsehood consistently outcompete truth for attention and reach. The gatekeepers are gone, but what replaced them rewards outrage over accuracy, volume over quality, and speed over truth. The dream of democratized media produced something real. It also produced something nobody predicted, an information environment in which it has never been harder to know what is actually true. Number 5. More leisure time. Technology was going to give us our afternoons back. The promise was specific and repeated often. Automation, digital tools, and the efficiency gains of the connected world would reduce the amount of time people needed to spend working. The work week would shrink. Leisure would expand. The question economists and futurists were asking in the 1990s was not how we would fill our working hours. It was how we would fill our free time. That question turned out to be premature. Research by the International Labor Organization has found that in most developed countries, working hours have not decreased significantly since the widespread adoption of the internet. In the United States, knowledge workers, the people most connected to digital tools, work longer hours on average than their counterparts did in the pre-internet era. The always-on expectation created by email and smartphones has extended the working day into evenings, weekends, and holidays in ways that were simply not possible before. Economist John Maynard Keynes predicted in 1930 that his grandchildren's generation would work no more than 15 hours a week, freed by technology from the burden of labor. Almost a century later, the average full-time worker in the United States works approximately 47 hours per week. Many work more. The efficiency gains were real, but they were captured by productivity, not by leisure. The time saved by digital tools was not returned to people. It was used to do more. Number 4. An informed and engaged citizenry. Access to information was going to make democracy stronger. The reasoning was straightforward. An uninformed public was always the vulnerability of democratic systems. People made poor decisions when they lacked facts. The internet would fix this by making all information available to everyone, everywhere for free. Citizens would be better informed than any generation in history. Democracy would be strengthened by an electorate that had access to everything it needed to know. The opposite has also proven true. The same tools that made information universally accessible also made misinformation universally accessible. The same platforms that could inform could mislead. And the psychological dynamics of information consumption, the tendency to seek out confirming evidence, to distrust contradicting sources, to share emotionally resonant content without verifying it, did not disappear because more information became available. They intensified. Research by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism has documented a long-term decline in public trust in news media across most developed democracies. The Edelman Trust Barometer, which tracks institutional trust across 28 countries, found that trust in government, media, and institutions has declined steadily through the era of mass internet adoption. The internet gave citizens access to more information than any generation in history. It also gave bad actors access to those same citizens with more efficiency than any propaganda machine in history. The informed and engaged citizenry the internet was supposed to produce exists, but it coexists with a misinformed and disengaged one. And the two are increasingly unable to agree on basic facts. Number 3. The death of distance. Location was not going to matter anymore. The internet was going to make geography irrelevant. You could work from anywhere. You could access any market. You could connect with anyone, regardless of where they lived. The accident of physical location, which had always determined so much of what a person could access and achieve, was finally going to stop mattering. This one came closer to the truth than most. Remote work, global commerce, and digital communication have genuinely reduced some of the penalties of geographic isolation. A programmer in a small town can work for a company in a major city. A writer in a rural area can reach a global audience. But geography did not stop mattering. It changed what it meant. Research by economist Enrico Moretti and others has documented a growing divergence between thriving cities and declining regions, a pattern that has accelerated in the internet era rather than reversing it. The most valuable economic activity, the kind that generates high wages and opportunity, is concentrated in a smaller number of cities than ever before. The technology that was supposed to spread opportunity has, in some respects, concentrated it. The death of distance turned out to be real for some people, in some industries, with reliable broadband access and the right skills. For many others, geography continued to determine opportunity just as it always had. The map did not become irrelevant. It just became more complicated. Number 2. Privacy through anonymity. The internet was going to give ordinary people a kind of freedom they had never had before. The early internet felt like a space where you could be anyone. You could explore ideas, try on identities, say things you would never say in person. The anonymity of the early web felt liberating. And many of its early architects believed that this anonymity would protect ordinary people from surveillance, from judgment, from the kinds of social and institutional control that had always shaped what people felt free to say and do. What nobody fully anticipated was the other side of anonymity. Anonymity did protect some people from institutional surveillance, at least temporarily. It also removed the social accountability that prevents people from behaving at their worst. The harassment, the hate speech, the coordinated abuse campaigns that became defining features of online culture in the 2010s were all made possible by, and in many cases directly fueled by, the same anonymity that was supposed to protect freedom. Meanwhile, the promise of privacy itself collapsed. The institutions that built the internet's infrastructure, the platforms, the advertisers, the data brokers, did not respect anonymity. They systematically dismantled it, building profiles of users so detailed that the early promise of digital freedom now seems almost quaint. You were not anonymous online. You were identifiable in ways that were more comprehensive and more permanent than anything that existed in the physical world. The liberation turned out to be a brief illusion. What replaced it was surveillance at a scale that the architects of the early internet did not foresee and, in most cases, did not intend. Number 1. A more equal world. This was the biggest promise, and the one that hurts the most to examine. The internet, its champions argued, was the great equalizer. It gave everyone access to the same information. It removed the advantages of geography and wealth and institutional gatekeeping. A child in a village in a developing country would have access to the same knowledge as a student at the world's best university. The barriers that had always reproduced inequality, unequal access to information, to markets, to networks, to opportunity, were going to come down. Some of them did come down. Information access is genuinely more equal than it was 30 years ago. Entrepreneurship in parts of the world that had been cut off from global markets became possible in ways it never had been before. But the internet did not produce equality. In many respects, it accelerated inequality. Research by economists including Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee, documented in their book The Second Machine Age, found that the digital economy has systematically concentrated the gains of technological progress among a smaller number of people and companies than any previous technological revolution. Platform economics rewards scale. Winner-take-all dynamics concentrate market power. The wealthiest companies in human history, measured by market capitalization, are all internet companies. Their wealth is concentrated among a small number of founders, investors, and early employees. The gap between the richest and poorest in most developed countries has widened through the era of mass internet adoption, not narrowed. The child in the village with a smartphone has access to more information than ever. They also face a global economy whose rules were written by and for the countries and companies that built the internet. The great equalizer turned out to be more complicated than the promise. The information is more equal. The opportunity is not. And that gap between what the internet promised and what it delivered is still one of the defining challenges of our time. And that's the end of today's countdown. Some memories make us laugh, some make us think, and some remind us how much the world has changed. If this video brought back a memory, share it with someone who would understand. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.